Hey, welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the Mystic Top 10. We do this semi-annually. Always have an absolute blast going forward and doing it. My Discord server, they get to nominate and then they vote. And I like to tabulate that and show you all because they're playing the game at a variety of paces, modes, levels, whatever term you want to use, but they are incredibly, incredibly smart. I love hanging out, talking the game over with them and seeing what they are up to. So this is their top 10. I will get to my top 10. And if you have already heard the intros, if you've already heard the metric, if you've heard the breakdown from Cabro and from Bear and Vega on how this is all formulated and how you're supposed to interpret it all, go ahead. There's a timestamp in the description. You can jump straight there. But the one thing I want to make sure everyone always hears every video is, yes, this is very helpful. Yes, this is very informative to get my opinion and the opinion of all these smart players. But also, the most important category, in my opinion, is who do you enjoy most? Make sure you add a 20 out of 0 onto that category when you go to make your own rank ups, because you're going to know how to play them and you're going to have a lot of fun. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it. Hey, this is Baron Vega. Vega's asked me to do the introduction and explanation of his metric system that he and his friends from SSX came up with. In general, every champion is given a total score out of 40. I have been given a 31, which although I've been told is extremely good, I do believe it should be significantly higher, and I'm sure you agree with me. General is a possible 10 out of 10. This is essentially just how good is the champion. We all kind of intuitively know it. How many powerful abilities do they have? If new content comes out, are they some of the first champions you think of? Battlegrounds. It's an important mode. Great rewards, and a chance to really use your roster and strategy and knowledge of this game. There's a possible 10 points in your defensive capabilities to your champions was able to be included. I'm a great defender and a fantastic attacker. Therefore, I got an 8 out of 10. It should be a 10, but it's an 8. I'll take that up with Vega later. In war, you are not allowed to include your defensive prowess in the score. It is also out of 10 points. I've been given an 8, which, as we all know, is ridiculous. But I am told that it means this is a reliable attacker that is used often to take a variety of nodes and defenders, and you frequently see them used in high-tier war. Long-form content. Necropolis has the best rewards in the game, and long-form has a total score possibility of 5. Again, I should be a 5 out of 5, but they've given me a 3, meaning I was either able to be used consistently for a fight or two, or maybe very good in one lane in Necropolis, or I was good in Gauntlet or EOP. I happen to know I was phenomenal in all of them, and Vega is just wrong here, but that's fine. We'll move on. And then ease of use is a possible total 3 points. 3 meaning you are easy. Think of your archangels. I bet that Cabro gets a 3 out of 3. That guy is mindless and simple. And then the toughest is a 1, meaning your Tigers and your Kate Bishops, and I am too smart to ask anyone to spend that much time trying to learn how to play me. A 2 is just right, and this is the 1 score, aside from the 10 out of 10, that Vega got correct. Baron Vega, I'm sure you've caught on by now. Hopefully you've seen some of the other videos. He leaked that this used to be actually the best out of 40. We did trim it down because ease of use was it was inflating the scores too much. It wasn't, we didn't like the way it was really tuning out. So ease of use is actually a best out of 3, meaning the most possible points you can get is 38. But Baron Vega did such a great job there, I decided to leave it alone. All right, let's go into Mystic here. We have one champion who was made the honorable mention, and it was tough to leave them out, but the scores are what the scores are. And that was Wong, who came in with a score of 26. So fantabulous in long form content. I've used them myself. Normax has used them, put all those videos out. You really need to check all that out because he is a blast and so good to play. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the top 10, right? This is an extremely strong class and one of my favorites. We have a new champion in 2023 and a relatively new release. Yes, again, you've heard me mention in every video so far, at least the ones I've recorded, Bitter Steel, showing us really cool stuff and phenomenal showcase on his channel. Go subscribe to it and check this out, and you'll learn a lot about this game from that young man. Werewolf is incredibly powerful. There are other people who've caught on to how good Werewolf is. I think FinTech has as well, and many in the Alliance SSX. I think this is a champion who, I've been talking to you about. Some champions I think they're going to stay the same. Some are going to maybe fall off a little bit and get stronger. I think this is a champion that we very much might be talking about even more high as 2024 goes on. 8 general, very, very strong. BG's very strong attacker and clearly also has a big defensive threat. I think we're about to start getting used to that. In War, seeing him take some really cool fights. He has that power gain. That's a really big deal, but then he's got the damage to back it up. You can gain all the power you want, but if you have pillow hands, nothing's going to happen there. Doesn't seem to be a threat in long form content, and then ease of use, Bitter and others said about a 2 out of 3. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the other number 10 that Werewolf was tied with. None other than Longshot. Longshot, not as long as Hyperion, but been in the game quite a while and really hung in there. I think Battlegrounds has brought him back to the forefront, being such a strong dual threat there. In general, high damage output, I think that has to be reflected in there. And then also that really nice SB2 with, I believe it is a Fate Seal or a Nullify, and then the massive damage that comes off of it with a relatively easy play style. Battleground's a very strong defender and offensive champion. I really was tempted and wanted to have him at 9, but the group talked me down to 10 just to kind of combat inflation. And it made a lot of sense to me in keeping those 10s out of 10s, very, very unique and special. But so those of you who've been watching this video series knows a 9 out of 10 in Battlegrounds is a big, big deal. Not a lot of those. A 6, he's not being used a ton. I think it's because he doesn't have the breadth of utility. There's no immunities or something like that. Also, the mystics that are strong or frequently brought to war have a ton of those things. And so I think as a result, you're just not seeing Longshot brought that often. Ironically, though, in long form content, we saw him being considered to be, if you didn't have Doom, he was like one of the most major replacement options in, let's see, what was it called again? Abyss of Legends. Not seeing him being brought in to Necropolis, though, but we still wanted to reflect that he did have value in Abyss. So it's not impossible, or it's not unusual, it's not odd, it's not unrealistic to think he may have value in some other long form content should it come out. Because remember, we're covering not just Necropolis, but also like EOP and things like that. Ease of use. This is like an ideal version of a 2 out of 2. You've got to have some knowledge, you got to have some ability to punish heavies with your own heavy. You have to have some spacing ideas, but this is nowhere near the difficulty of Tigra. All right, let's move on to our number 8 Mystic Champions. I'm sure none of you are surprised to see Kushala on this list, given that I got to help be part of the design process. Yes, I said that for a lot of you. She's generally a very powerful champion, right? She has those immunities. She has the ability to get her ability accuracy up. She has the Nullify. She has a large damage source off the SP1 with the Incinerate. And then, of course, she has the SP2 Soul Barb as well. And I've shown her in long-form content where her SP3 is very, very strong. If you have any questions about Kushala, you really should, and honestly, not tooting my own horn, go check out the Kushala playlist on my channel. I've done a full Essentials guide. I've shown her in short form. As far as Battlegrounds, I've shown her in War, soloing Tier 1. 7-star rank 3 Maestro bosses. I've shown her in long form content, and like I said, I did the full how-to guide. She's a very strong champion. Battlegrounds, this is a score that I think over the course of 2024 may very well go up. I could see her definitely getting to a 9. I don't think she's going to get to 10, but we'll see. Time will tell on that. War is a 7. She has a really unique immunity set, especially for the Mystic class. So I could see this score also going up. A lot of it's going to have to do with what defenders and nodes and placements and things like that come out. But goodness knows, like myself and my alliance, and I'm sure a lot of the other tier 1 alliances, they've got their Kushalas lined up now. And if the map says she's going to be good for it, they're going to use her. In long form, I've already soloed, I think, 2, possibly 3 Necropolis fights with her. So I think this shows she's got a lot of value there. You just have to want to use her, and she's so new that not many people have, or they've already done their paths or things like that. So she clearly has long form value. And then ease of use, she's not quite Tigra, but there is a high ask here. And if you want these scores, especially if you want to push her up to like an 8 in War or a 10 in General or a 9 in Battlegrounds, she's definitely a 1. But I think even to get these scores, she's a 1. She's not Tigra, but she's more a 1 than she is a 2. You want to learn her, but if you learn her really well, you're going to be rewarded. Tied with Kushala for the number 8 spot in Mystic is the Hood. Generally very strong champion, 9 out of 10. Battlegrounds, 8 out of 10. This is almost purely offensive use. There was a time where Hood was considered a relatively difficult defender. The idea was like, do not let him throw his SP2. This is going back years and years and years in War when Mystic Dispersion was even worse than it was now, if I recall correctly. Definitely a very good war attacker, right? Massive SP2, the ability to go invisible, create those openings and things like that. He's got the stagger. Phenomenal champion. I really do like him. It's been weird that I still have not ranked him up to, I think, even rank 4. Long form content, that's just not his thing, right? He's getting up they're not called staggers. He gets up his mechanic and then he detonates them with this heavy. Long form content's just not his deal. So he's a 1 out of 5 there. And then ease of use. This is a really nice, again, example of a 2 out of 3, where not Tigra, but also not your parry heavy champion. I really like Hood. I think for players who are extremely skilled, they could maybe push this up a little bit higher. I don't think he's going up in the meta, and I don't think he's going down. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our number 6 champions. Moving up 1 point, coming in at number 6, we have another tie here for the 6th spot between 2 champions, and the first one's going to be Rintra. You know I can't stand this champion because he doesn't make sense. He's been on the Trello board for a while. It seems like they either have fixed him, they're going to fix him. I don't really know. It's on the Trello board, right? So, I'm not going to be checking that. Now, general, an 8 out of 10. The guy is a mess. He's an absolute mess, but he is powerful. I cannot deny it. Battlegrounds, one of the best dual threats out there. Really tanky defender. Now, there's a lot of science champions who have been coming out who can really mess with Rintra, like just absolutely obliterate him. But the fact of the matter is you still need to get that matchup, and he's still very, very tanky. And if you do mess up, or if the AI decides to be passive, the fight can take forever. And then you can turn around and use him to take your Gallons, your Hercules, your Hulklings, and things like that. He's not a phenomenal attacker in that sense, but I do think his defensive value, at least for now, warrants him being a 9. When we do this again in June, I could see him being an 8. War attacker, for the most part, and you saw me use him so much. There was a season I used him so much that I openly talked about getting very bored using him because there was a meta that really didn't work well for him, but there was just so few neutralized champions that could work, and Rintra did. It kind of shows you a little bit about the breadth of him when there was a meta that actively works against him, but he could still be used. Long form content, that is not what he's about. And ease of use, it really doesn't get any easier than Rintra when you're talking about champions that are at this level. Archangel is going to be about it. As far as it, you get him in the corner, you light, you throw your special 2. If you've got too much power, you throw your special 1. And a lot of the champions, if I think there's something worth noting, I will note, and he is one where I actually think over the course of 2024, we see him move down. Now, if not that many Mystic champions come out, chances are he doesn't. But as far as like his value, his ultimate score and things like that, I think it's significantly more likely that we see Rintra move down over the course of 2024 than we see him move up, and probably even then we see him stay the same. Really good champion. I just think he's peaked and is now on the back half of his time in the meta. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Juggernaut. I guess I just gave it away. We're moving on to Juggernaut. I mean, what else is there to say, right? Like, he does have the Nullify, and his damage off the SP2 is so strong, and his ease to play is so high that we had to give him a 9 in general. Despite, I remember when his buff went live, and I was like, guys, this is a really good champion. Everyone's like, he sucks. He's terrible. The buffs are terrible. Everything's terrible. And I was like, okay, but I think he's pretty good. And then, Battlegrounds. Oh, got a new subscriber. Thank you for subscribing. Battlegrounds is now out, and I think that mode wasn't available at that time, if I recall correctly. And he's just amazing. He's a monster. He's one of our few 10 out of 10s, and he's purely doing that as an attacker. Purely doing it as an attacker. He is that good. He is that phenomenal. He can take that many nodes. He's got the counter punch, and the relic lines up with him. I showed that in a video as well. He's phenomenal. If this was just a pure Battlegrounds tier list, which I do have and we update monthly, there's a reason why he's as highly ranked in there as he is. In War, his playstyle just doesn't fit it. It doesn't mean that it can't happen. I use him in questions sometimes, but I would feel comfortable saying I highly doubt that he will ever be assigned to me or to any of my alliance mates in Tier 1 War. Maybe there's an alliance doing that in Tier 1 Masters War. I haven't seen it. His playstyle and the way he works, and there's a lack of like utility, I guess, that really just makes it so he just doesn't make sense. Long form content, we gave him a 2 because it could happen. His damage is really good, and it was the EOP, if I remember correctly, and that's kind of where I started to learn how to play Juggernaut. Now I'm remembering why we gave him a 2. Was he helped you get out 2 of the challenges, 2 of the quests, I don't remember exactly the term, objectives at once, and he was actually pretty good for it. Juggernaut. I love this champion. And ease of use. Again, to be this high up, this highly rated, he is a 3 out of 3 to be this powerful. Now, this champion actually surprised me to see them coming in as the number 5 with a score of 30, because I had honestly forgotten about him. The day his buff went live, I took him to like the highest rank you possibly could. We tested him on stream. I was like, this champion's amazing. I love Diablo. And it's weird to me that we don't see him more. I think people just had to like buy in on him. I sometimes get my butt kicked by him in Battlegrounds, and I'm always reminded like what a phenomenal champion he is. I used him in War. I was in for Loki at the time. It was just amazing. It was like the buffs had really started getting going there. They did such a great job with him. Now that he's going to in that 7-star crystal, and there's so few champions in that crystal, I hope we start seeing him more and more and more, because this is an accurate reflection of his value, in my opinion. General 9 of 9. Remember all those pre-fights he has? Then in Battlegrounds, like I said, he sometimes comes in and just absolutely kicks my butt. No defensive value whatsoever. A War, a phenomenal attacker, very safe. He's got the healing mechanic and the whole thing. He's fantastic. Long form. I've been told that there's a strong feeling that we're going to start seeing him being used in Necropolis, if we haven't already, by people who have maybe ascended their 6-star. But because he's now in that 7-star crystal, I could see people holding off, which is a shame. But the fact of the matter is, Diablo can ramp up. He can get a nice damage going, and he can keep it going. I really think we're going to see him in Necropolis or other pseudo long-form content as it comes out in 2024. And then ease of use. He's close to the 2, okay? He's close to the 2. He's not as much a 3 as like the Juggernaut we just saw, or Rintra, but it is enough to put him at the 3 and give him that value, because you can achieve those scores with him relatively easy, right? So you can achieve the 9 in general, the 7 in Battlegrounds, the 8 in War, and the 3 in long-form content relatively easy with him. He's a phenomenal, phenomenal champion, and I'm excited we've got him out as a 7-star. I do not think his place in the meta will be changing, and when we do this in June and next year, we're going to see him in about the same place, potentially higher, depending on how many people get him as a 7-star and who has him and who's using him and wants to use him. The number 4 champion is America Chavez in the Mystic class. Yes, I know I've been saying this for a very long time, and it's been really cool to see everyone really embrace it and catch on. And I get it. When she first came into the game, she was actually not good, and I was one of the people saying that. She had her fans, but they were wrong. But then she got her buff, and I could see why, when they first designed her, why they were scared. Because a little tweak with her, and you got what she got now. And can you imagine if they had just tweaked it just even more? She'd be breaking the game. Her ability to reverse ability power rate, and how prevalent that is, and how often Kabam uses that as a threat via a node or a defender, makes her just so strong. And then she's hitting hard enough now, though, to break through, because eventually things would go bad when she couldn't hit that hard, because there's combat power rate and things like that as well too. She's a Battlegrounds monster. If without that heavy bias in her AI, I think this would be different. But the fact of the matter is, she clearly has a heavy bias in her AI. It's there, and it helps make her the troublesome and problematic defender that she is. And then, it's not just me showing you how great she is offensively in Battlegrounds too. I've shown you how amazing she is in War. When I first started using her, people were like, it's just the tactic. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. And I did the Battlegrounds video showing, like, see? And now she hasn't been attacker tactic in War, still using her, still doing phenomenal things with her. She doesn't need a really strong travel partner in Kate Bishop. She doesn't need it. I take Hulklings all the time with her. Adam Warlocks, difficult nodes, the whole thing. She can do it. She can handle it. My 7-star is not even awakened, so we can't say it's that. She's just going to get stronger when she is. She's a rank 2, not a rank 3. And she is valuable in long-form content. I've been using her. I will eventually get off those videos, I think. Maybe I'll stop saying that, because something always comes up. But I've been using her in my Necropolis run. She's been in every single one so far, and I've used her, and she's been valuable in fights in every single one, not just Airwalker. Not in every single fight, in every single run. Don't want to overstate that. I realize how that sounded. And then ease of use. She's a 2. There is an art to using her. There are things you can do that really maximize and I think get you these scores. And if you don't play her this way, your scores will come down a little bit. So you could play her more simply. She's like an ideal example of a 2 as far as ease of use is concerned on a 1 to 3 scale. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our number 3 Mystic Champion. As I make these videos, I'm on my 3rd one right now, and you can hear it in my voice. It's starting to go, but this is our first champion. I feel confident that that is a 10 out of 10 in the first 3 categories. Gives you an idea of the class of champion we're now in. Like, remember, even Hercules wasn't. A 10 in general. She's just so strong. She's simple and effective. Battlegrounds, 10 out of 10. This is a nuke that can do so many things. Your Tiger players, as soon as a new champion comes out, supposed to be a good defender, they go and they find a way to take that defender with Tiger, and they're succeeding at a very high rate. In war, same thing. You know how to play her. You are taking the map, multiple fights, doing a phenomenal job, and often making it look very easy, despite us knowing it is not. The only thing she's not great at is long form. And it makes sense when you think about the way she works and that sort of thing. But honestly, I have a feeling some of those Tiger players probably could use her in relatively long form. I don't know about Necropolis. And then ease of use, she's the one I keep using as the example of one of the hardest champions to use, not just because of like the in-game mechanics and things like that and her ability sets, but also needing to know spacing. And that is important in this game. Tigra, 33. We have her ranked as the 3rd best champion in the Mystic class. That's not an insult to her. And you will see her again. I'm sure you understand that when we go to the best champions overall in the whole game. The number 2 champion in the Mystic class. And it makes sense. I know this was one I was also a little bit surprised by. I knew he'd be up there. And I would have placed him like in the top 5. But when we did the actual list and we went through the scoring multiple times and even adjusted the categories and how much and how we're going to format it and all, just to make sure it all made sense and fit with like, was that 15 different people's opinions on there. General 10 out of 10. I mean, all of those immunities and different damage sources, there's a lot packed into one champion. Battlegrounds, one of my favorite dual threats, by far one of the best dual threat champions. He's an effective defender. There are few counters, but they do exist in the science class. But he also can then turn around and take some of the most difficult defensive champions in the game. Like I said, one of the very few 10 out of 10s you see in Battlegrounds, and one of the very few you see doing it as a dual threat as well. War. Last war season, I used Absorbing Man so many times. I've shown you hazard shift fights. I've shown you non-hazard shift fights. I've seen you magma form. I've shown you Euro form. We've shown you him coming along with a Mortal Abomination. We've seen him without a Mortal Abomination. People have shown you him taking Korg 7-star rank 2 war bosses. Clown, what's up, bud? DLL, the designer himself, and more. There's not a lot that Absorbing Man can't do in war where you need to be safe and you need that security. He's there for you. What puts him up higher than Rintra or than Tigra, because people are like, what? How's he higher than Tigra? Is long form content. He's also been great in Necropolis. I talked to you about this when I did my predictions for Necropolis MVPs, and I mentioned Absorbing Man and I mentioned his SP3. I learned a lot. I listened to DLL's Champion Spotlight with context videos. He does those for every champion, and I pay a lot of attention to all of them, but particularly when it's his own champion. He dropped some nuggets in there, and he talked about Absorbing Man's SP3, and then I used it in war, and I talked to you about how powerful that is and how it sets you up for a fight. And lo and behold, here we are. We've got Necropolis, and Absorbing Man is the best option for a handful of fights in there, and a lot of people have been using him more than I have. I ascended him thinking he'd come along, but America Chavez has been so good for me. I haven't used my Absorbing Man, but I will try to bring him in on at least one of my runs so I can talk to you guys about it. But he's been great. And then to achieve these results, he's a 1. He's a 1 on the ease of use. Okay, 1 being the hardest out there in the game, because you do need to play him well. You need to get those those heavy punishes. You need to use your light to intercept and to punish the heavies and these sorts of things. And you need to be very mindful of which form it is that you need to be in. So there's like the mental understanding of his abilities, but then the actual skill in the fight to pull it off as well. All right, let's move to number 1, who I think will probably not surprise anyone. It is a tie, but this is similar to what we talked about with Hercules, not to the same extent.
But if more points were possible, I think Doom would move up more. But we had to limit it somewhere. He's a bit of an outlier. 10 out of 10 general. It'd be really tough to argue against this. Okay. Battlegrounds. The only thing is, and this is interesting because this is the same situation with Herc. This is where Herc wasn't a 10 out of 10. Is they're a bit slow. They're a bit slow. Not a lot slow, but a bit slow. They're very good defensively and offensively. Doom's been in the game longer, so I think that's probably why he has maybe more counters or more champions that could take him. He doesn't have that crit resistance, though. That is never fun. Neither is the Doom Slap. In war, he's one of the best war champions. He can be absolutely abused. He's even good with power backs somehow. And then in long form content, he was one of the 4 horsemen for the Abyss of Legends, and he is very good in Necropolis for some of the toughest fights out there. You need that power control, and you can just Doom lock a defender down. He's phenomenal for it, right? Ease of use, I would put him at a 2. You know, some people could see him being a 1, some people would see him being a 3, which made the 2 make a ton of sense. The Doom cycle, once you really get it, it's not that bad. It took me a bit, but I got it. And like I said, you can throw him on with the power backs. He's a phenomenal champion. The design is obviously very good, and he's packed full with a ton of abilities and a really, really nice flow and loop. The only reason he's not higher up is that there's some limits in like general and in war, and then also because he's just a tiny bit slow. He's just a little bit slow in Battlegrounds, and if it wasn't for that, he'd be a 10 out of 10 or a 12 out of 10 or whatever. Phenomenal champion. I think it's this is really reflected in the scores, but also in what we're all experiencing in game. That was the Mystic class. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're watching all of them. I know I'm having a blast. I had a blast going over this with all the guys and coming up with the rankings and the categories and those sorts of things and making the graphics and then now, of course, doing the videos. Hope you have had a chance to watch a lot of them. They're all in the playlist on my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Massive shout out and thank you to my boys over at SSX. So many of them spent a ton of time sharing their knowledge, their expertise, and their experience in these modes, and also helped me come up with the formula in order to rank these champions. Specific thank you and shout out to Bitterstill, Campo, DLL, Gara, Na, Odysseus, Outline, Royu, Shibi, Simula, The Strands, Zahid, Matt Duhill, and of course my boy, Egatron. All right.